Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the MSP Initiative, MSP Talk. It is July 24th, 2025, and we are neck deep in summertime, or we call it for some reason monsoon season here in the Northeast. I don't know. I feel like we switched weather with like Ireland or New Orleans, or I don't know. I can't get through 7 days without rain. I don't know what the deal is. I'll tell you what, I don't want to hear the word drought around here anytime soon because I think there's so much water I can't even get my grass cut on a regular, but I digress. MSPinitiative.com. This is where you're going to find most of the stuff that we're working on. You'll find the albums and videos and all the recaps of our party in Dublin with our friends from DattoCon in Dublin. You'll also see our post-event photos and videos from the Flow conference hosted by our friends Roost in Tampa last month. Coming up here for the rest of the year, we are running the Channel Sports Tour for the first time. So if you've been following MSP Initiative for a long time, you know during pandemic times we did the Channel Strong Tour, right? We were on the road going all over America. So we're going to take a little page out of our book and shift it to NFL, which if you don't like the NFL, then don't worry about it. But if you're an NFL fan, you can join us in Dallas, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, and we're going back to Dublin. Vikings, Steelers in Dublin. So, oh, and Los Angeles. Can't forget about our friends over there on the West Coast. So, those are the games we have circled on the calendar. Check out MSP Initiative or channelsportstour.com, and you can see all that stuff coming up. We also have DattoCon coming up in Miami. We'll be taking over the pretty famous Live nightclub, which apparently is the go-to premier spot on South Beach to get into. I didn't know that until we did this party last year. So we were taking over that guy again. And then we'll be back down in Sydney for DattoCon Sydney to wrap up the year for all of our in-person stuff. So all this is online. Register ahead of time. Is absolutely free for you as an MSP to join us. And then if you're interested in Channel Sports Tour, we are taking wait lists, people, right? So if you're interested, let us know, and then we'll kind of shake things out as we get a little bit closer to the start of the season, which training camp in the NFL just started this week. Believe it or not, even though it's July. So the summer will be, like you'll blink, it'll be gone, and we'll be into the fall. School will be started for all the people who got to worry about school buses, and then the season starts here in good old South Philadelphia against the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys to start the league year. So very excited for that here in Philadelphia. There's all of my sports talk, although I always wear Eagles gear on here. I think you know where I'm from. So all of that to the side, we bring on a guy that I've known for a long time. He's been in the sandbox, in a couple different places. I'm not going to tell his story. I'll let him tell us all himself. But welcome to the show, Andrew Mora. How you doing, buddy?
Hey George, thanks for having me. I'm doing good,
Yeah.
man. I'm also living the rain life. I was just talking to Jen about that. It's Denver's been kind of weird. Every day at five, between 5 and 7, it rains here. So I'm with you. I can't keep up with grass cut. There should be no drought for the next couple of years at least. So really, really wet summer for us over here. So if you're into golf, it's been killing my golf game to try to get out after work. So, but good to see you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Denver's that weird weather where like one day it could be negative temperature and then the next day it could be like 70 and it's like what's going on here? Like do I get my summer clothes out? Do I get my winter clothes out? Like I just have to have everything. I can't put anything away.
That was the best piece of advice when I first moved here was you need a pack for all seasons in your car. So flip-flops, umbrella, winter jacket, all in one, because you never know from day to day.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, it sounds like your car is pretty packed up. You're prepared.
Very
Uh,
much so.
for people who don't know the Andrew Mora story, I usually like to have everybody do a little walk down, memory lane, kind of like paint the picture, like what your journey's been like, and then we'll try and catch up to present day and see where we're at.
Cool. So yeah, I started in the channel 12 years ago. I was actually the last employee hired at a file sync and share company that most MSPs know, Anchor, before they were consumed by eFolder. was a part of the eFolder acquisition, and then got recruited heavily over to Autotask after they bought Sooner. And so I helped them with their file sync and share, which then turned into Autotask Workplace, then Datto Workplace. So I was a part of the Autotask Datto merger. Um, but what ended up happening, I'm originally actually from the Bay Area, and when I got recruited over to Autotask, I ended up moving from San Francisco over to Dallas, and ran the Autotask Dallas office. When the Datto merger happened, unfortunately, I was a part of the RIF. But luckily, my wife at the time was 8 months pregnant, and I needed a job, so I called eFolder back, and they hired me the next day. So I ended up working there for a little bit for my second go around, and how I met Pax 8 because they did a launch with Axient eFolder at the time. And so I happened to run into the Pax 8 crew, and I was like, this is an interesting company. And then 2 years later, went over to Pax 8, spent the last 5.5 years doing a bunch of different things over there. I did their backup team, so I ran that team for 2 years, and then moved over to their strategic accounts for 2 years. And then the last year before I moved over to Cork, I was actually doing their sports marketing. So I was doing a lot of the PAX 8 premieres, what they call it. And then in February, came over to Cork and started being a Corkie and getting into the insurance world and the warranty world. So it's been a wild ride, and I kind of poke fun of myself, and I say that I'm a lifelong channel person now. So I don't think I'm ever leaving.
Yeah. Corky. That's funny. That's great. Sports marketing, man. It's interesting that that concept in the IT space. I try and mesh those worlds as much as I can. And you're from the Bay Area. Well, the Super Bowl is in Santa Clara this year. Did you know that?
So I'm from the East Bay, so I'm originally like an Oakland, like Raiders,
Ah,
Oakland A's fan. I personally just don't like the Santa Clara Stadium, just because
have
like
you?
they don't.
So you've been okay.
I've been a couple times. They just don't really do like the tailgating. It's not really like it's more of like a business sports park than like a friendly invite, family type of thing. So it's not my type of vibe. But if you're in a Levi Stadium, then great. But I'm more of a Coliseum, take the BART ride, more of a little bit of a if you're kind of crowd, but yeah,
Okay.
it's all right.
So are you still following the Raiders since they moved to Vegas?
I had to denounce my loyalty since they left. So
Ooh.
I'm just like an East Bay Area fan. So even with the A's leaving and unfortunately moving up to Sacramento and then now also going to Las Vegas, I still rock my hats every once in a while, but I don't follow them as much anymore, unfortunately.
All right, good to know. Just curious, just trying to figure out where everybody stands. All right.
Oh,
So you've been through a lot of names that if you've been around the IT MSP, I call it the sandbox for a while. These are pretty familiar names, right? And names that rolled up in the bigger names, right? So eFolder, which then rebranded to Axient, and then Anchor, and then Sooner, and Autotask, Datto. Um, for 2 seconds, let's just talk about like what your perception is. I always like to pick the brain of people who've been around for a while, right? Like there are a lot of outside money that came into the sandbox that ultimately like sucked in all those logos you just mentioned. And now fast forward to 25, right? Like you've seen this at multiple different levels. Private company, acquired company, funded company, but startup, right? Like you've been at all different stages. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it just a way of life? You just got to figure, you got to deal with it. I mean, do you like it? Do you not? I'm just curious, right? Because, it's not good. Clearly, from where I sit, ain't going anywhere. And the second that the interest rate gets down to something lower than what it is now, I'm sure it's just going to fire right back up.
I'm
But,
back. Yeah.
um,
Great question. I think it could be good and bad. I think it's a necessary thing, right? I think funding to make the products better will always be a thing. I do think that some backings have better track records than others. Because the thing that I hate to see is when you consume a product and then you just let it die from the R&D perspective, especially when you have a really good product. And you've seen it in the space time and time again where a partner will jump, especially from the distribution space, right? Because it's like hey, we have all the products, you can move it under like the Pax8 umbrella, let's say, and you find these products that they loved the first couple of years, and then they go into under acquisition, and then they just let it quote unquote die, right? That's the thing that I hate to see, and it just puts partners in a bad situation, right? Because then they either have to stick with it and kind of deal with it, or they have to, or they're forced to move. So I think there's good and bad. I just like everything, because I do think there are some acquisitions that have made products better and enhanced products because they've had that injection of money. Um, so yeah, I think it just depends on your type of flavor. Everyone has a flavor in the MSP and so in the MSP space. But yeah, I think there's positives and negatives, and I think we've all have seen that. But I think the worst thing is when they acquire products and then they just let them die.
Yeah, I mean that I don't know if that's necessarily just our industry's problem. I think that it's maybe the blueprint of people who acquire companies, right? Like, hey, we're going to shift our resources to sales and marketing and back office innovation lab, building stuff, that's where we start to see things kind of go into maintenance mode, right? For lack of a better description. But yeah, I'm with you there. I think a lot of I mean, the reason I got into, the sandbox, this industry, whatever is, I just liked, cool things, right? Like, I like it's like a toy store, right? You open up a new thing every day, like, technology's cool, but yeah, then I realized like the business aspect of it, right? Like, hey, cool things are great, but you pay your bills and does it make money and all that good stuff. So totally understand. Tell us a little bit about, I mean, most of the companies you were up until this point were pretty well established, right? Cork's definitely, let's understand what it is for people who haven't heard of it before and like definitely in startup mode, right? So I think this may be the biggest version of startup mode in your journey, right?
Anchor was close. I would say it probably a little bit bigger. But yeah, this is probably like the quote unquote like smallest startup I've been a part of. Because even at like Pax8, I was employee 298, so
Hmm.
it's fairly new at that point. Even though it sounds massive, but it's just from the Microsoft piece. But what Cork does is we do two different things. So we do a monitoring platform. So essentially, we have 90 integrations, 93 integrations right now. Think of it from like an insurance questionnaire perspective, your attestations, do you have backup, do you have MFA, those types of things. That's essentially what we're validating on the monitoring portion. And then what people typically have known us for, especially in the past years, is the warranty side. So financial protection, right? Any of that gap coverage on from an insurance basis, but it's from a monetary level. So what we're really trying to do on that side is lessen the cost of an MSP's end users out-of-pocket expenses.
All right. So not cyber insurance, cyber warranty.
So yeah, another way that we kind of flip it is instead of like not insurance but assurance.
That's good marketing. Um, so for people who don't understand exactly what the gap is, if I say Affleck, but for cyber, incidents, I don't know if
Why
that's
don't you
a
say
right.
that? Yeah, so that's what MSPs have actually dubbed us as, right? Is the Aflac of cyber insurance. Essentially, think of like the general commonalities of what cyber insurance will not cover.
Mm-hmm.
Ransomware, ACH wire transfer, right? Some of the biggest things that MSPs end users encounter, that's where we'll cover.
Got it.
The other
So,
thing, go ahead.
all right. So at the core of this business is software that integrates into it's not 93 things.
Yeah, our dev team is really
EDR,
wild. I've never seen
network.
anything like this. So
Yeah.
typically we ask for a 7-day run window to get an integration going. As long as the other vendor has an API, my engineer is probably going to kill me because I say this, but basically he usually does it in 2 days or less. So this last month we pumped out 6 integrations, and that's just on top of other features that we're doing. But it's pretty wild how fast they do this.
So,
But
so,
it,
so,
go
so,
ahead.
so the concept, though, at like a high level, 30,000 feet is we're signing into all these systems, we're pulling data in, centralize and aggregate it, and then from there. you can determine, two things. One, from a monitoring standpoint, is everything the way it's supposed to be? Did things change? Did it turn on? Did it turn off? That kind of stuff, which, by the way, like happens all the time. I hear horror stories of, oh, well, we went to go implement it. We put it into monitoring mode. We never turned monitoring mode off, and it was actually never protecting anything. Like that, that's not an rare story. It happens all the time. But okay, so on the left you have this platform that pulls all this stuff in. But I assume the original idea was to take that and use you know, I'm gonna a bunch of analogies on this call today. It's like you ever see the commercial and your car insurance company's like, "Hey, put the dongle into your car. We're gonna like track your driving," and like you could save
Exactly.
money, but you could also get your higher premium if you're a very bad driver, right? Because if they see you're like driving over 70 miles an hour all the time, they're like, "Well, wait a minute." So like what it's doing is it's trying to determine your risk score based on actual data, not just you filling out a questionnaire.
Almost. So what we're doing is instead of that dongle that goes into your, your lighter thing, essentially we're instead of us notifying the insurance agency, we're notifying the MSP that the person's speeding, not wearing their seatbelt or whatever. But then there's no infraction, so it wouldn't go up if they weren't wearing their seatbelt or speeding. Essentially, we're just telling the MSP like, hey, you should probably tell them to lower their speed down so we can keep into what they agreed to from that perspective so that if they do get in an accident that they're going to get paid out. So almost it's almost that direction, but essentially we're more on the MSP side to let the community know like, hey, everything that you've attested to, we want to make sure that that's still correct, and if it's not, let's have some intervention to fix it. So in case something does happen, there is no questions when forensics actually gets run. But yes, you're absolutely right. So it's when I first came on, basically, I didn't know what Cork actually did. I knew they were a warranty company, but when I asked them, I was like, well, what are you guys actually warranting? What do you put a warranting on? Right? And then basically they're like, yeah, we put it on our platform. So from your dongle analogy, essentially if an end user has RMM, EDR, MFA, and BCDR, those four base products, your seatbelt, they don't speed, right? That generic thing. If you have those four basic products, then you actually qualify for a warranty. Some people will want financial protection, some people won't. But then what ended up happening over the time is more and more partners just asked us to start actually monitoring more categories outside of those base four. So we started getting into like email security, email, and then security awareness training. We let last week just added SaaS backup as a category. They
Hmm.
have nothing to do with warranty at all from that perspective, but it's more of just like you were saying, is everything out there that I want from a deployment standpoint cool? And then like the again coming from like the PSA space, we always talked about like the one pane of glass. I know that's like a big buzzword, but now, right, it's one pane. Now I kind of make fun where it's one pane of glass per product, right? Where when you actually look at Cork, the nine categories that we actually tie into of those 90 products, right? They are in one pane of glass. So that's where it'll differentiate, but like basically two different products, the monitoring and then the financial protection. Easiest way to explain it.
Okay. No, no, no. This is good. So back to and we're going to dive into both separately, but back into the warranty AFLAC coverage. Like you come up with a cost for the warranty based on the data you're pulling in from the four core product categories, and then you give them this coverage up to, what was it?
So we have two different coverages, $100,000 in protection or $500,000 in protection. And basically we make it super easy. We charge by endpoint and
Mhm.
then that's consolidated for the environment. And then it's based on a year for protection.
Okay. So like there's an incident and like this isn't to displace cyber insurance, this is to augment it, right? So like you're
Correct.
still going to call your cyber insurance company and start the process there, but then you're going to go into Cork's side and Cork's going to what, wire you money?
So great question. So we actually do two different things. So this is where it turns into like the MSP talk. When you think about like RTO and RPO,
Hmm.
essentially you go through an insurance, you file a claim, they do forensics, and then you are paying out of pocket and then reimbursed. For us, what happens when you actually file a claim, you go into our portal, hit submit a claim, you get a call either from myself or our CEO, Dan Candy, within an hour or less. Then what we do is we figure out what actually happened, and then we'll get you an electronic credit card for either $5,000 or $10,000 within 24 hours. And then our SLA for actual payment is within 30 days. Usually we get it done within 14 or less. And so again, because we tie into your tools, we already can say like from a forensic standpoint, was MFA on, was EDR on, was backup on, was right, were those four core products on, yes or no? Cool, they were on, great. And so it's exactly right. We're here to supplement cyber, right? And like what we again from when you think about it, this is where I turn back onto the business talk. When you look at to actually have a cyber policy actually executed, you're going to have two at a minimum two different costs. Your premium, which you pay for upfront, and then your deductible.
Mm-hmm.
What we tell partners and what we advise them to do is advise their customers to up their deductible because Cork will pay for that, which will
Mm-hmm.
then lower their premium. Again, now it's lowering their out-of-pocket expenses that they would pay for anyways.
You know, he, probably, good buddy JP Keezy, right? JP down.
F1, of course.
He was I was at an event last year and he was saying, he's like, hey, told my customer we had all the right things in place, like we could get them back if there was an incident pretty quickly, and he did. He had all the right things in place, but then he called, he had a customer had an incident, called the policy provider, and like they basically wouldn't let them bring the customer back online for like 40 days. They were like, hey, we don't know. We still have to determine the source. So like until we do, we don't want you to restore from your backup systems. We don't want you to, because it could still be a problem from your whenever the point in time is that you're restoring from. So like we need to finish our homework before we give you the green light, and that took over a month. And like think about any size business, but definitely small medium business, right? Like 30 days you can't operate, you're
Shutting
in
your doors,
trouble.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like not a good situation, right? And that's where I think for us, because essentially like what we're trying to do is make sure that those people get paid, right? Like we don't want the doors to close. And so all the within all the integrations that we have, we're seeing these compliance events. We've already seen about 2.8 million events, and we've only had four payouts, right? And it's for things when again, typical things we see is like the ACH wire transfer. Someone calls in because they have an invoice, they want to change their one number on their invoice, and then they pay it out. Insurance isn't going to pay that. The bank isn't going to be able to recoup that. And so we're just trying to figure out the what are the holes that we can actually fill in? How can we speed up the process? Because in some cases, like if you don't, if they don't change the actual claim and they can't do the claim, then what? Right. And then that's where it won't affect their actual premium or anything. Then we actually come out of expenses for that. But that's what's really cool about what we're doing. One of the tools that we have is called a Cyber Insurance Analyzer, or CIA for short. And what it is for MSPs to actually drag and drop any of their customers' policies in there. And
Hmm.
then it covers three different things. It'll tell them their executive summary, their coverage summary, and then their risk factors, what their sublimits are, right? And then it'll literally say, does a warranty supplement this coverage, yes or no?
I see. So sounds like that's actually a good thing. Not like large scale nuclear fallout Chernobyl edition here, right? Which is great. I'm glad to hear that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure I've heard horror stories. I'm sure you have too in our space. But um, have you run into in the like the examples that you're talking about where the insurance company actually didn't cover the claim, but Cork still did your part?
Yeah, so not the last one that we did, but the one before. So it was a construction company
Mm-hmm.
of an MSP out of Canada, and uh, let's call it the wood vendor.
Mm.
Email them an invoice, right? Hey, we have a 20,000 invoice that's outstanding. The construction company wired the $20,000. 3 weeks later, the wood vendor comes back and says, "Hey, you still have $20,000 outstanding. What's going on? Typically, you guys pay your bills on time." They said, "Yeah, we wired that to you. Here's what we wired it to. We haven't changed our banking information, right?" So they actually filed it. They went to the bank to see if they could actually reverse the funds. The bank could not do that. They filed it with their insurance. Unfortunately, they didn't know it was outside their actual policy because they didn't cover ACH wire transfer. Luckily, Cork actually paid that. So it was like the 20,000. And then what's cool is because we're agnostic of what the actual IR is done. So the MSP actually performed the IR. We paid that as well. So the customer didn't have to pay that out of pocket expense for the MSP to actually perform it, which is a nice factor because our partners are now just rolling in their IR services with Cork as an extra add-on as opposed to like charging the hourly after. So it just gives their customers peace of mind that they don't have that out-of-pocket expense. Same thing for insurance. They would have that same portion where Cork would pay for that too.
Interesting. Let me go the other way. So usually what happens, and again, I'm just telling you what I've heard. I am not the insurance expert, just to be clear, if you're watching this, like feel free to fact check me. But what I've heard is a lot of what happens when you call your cyber policy and you file a claim is they send it's a third party. The insurance company's not running their own IT, IR, incident response, if you didn't know what that means, and they're sending this third party, outfit in with basically with your questionnaire fill out from the last time you submitted your policy renewal. And they start, the first thing that they're doing is they're trying to figure out, is it true? Were
Correct.
you doing what the policy's documentation that you submitted said that you were doing? And that, part of the reason for that, and again, my understanding is if they can find a way to say that you weren't, then they're not covering your claim. It's the first thing they're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not just cyber, right? It's pretty much every insurance where like if you are considered negligent, then they are in the right to actually not pay out.
Hmm.
What we see is one out of every three claims don't get paid out for that type of reason,
Hmm.
right? And so that's where, again, like if you think about that dongle that you were referring to, that's what we're trying to stay in front of to where your attestations that you're saying yes to on January 1st when you got your policy and when the breach happened on, July 24th, that everything that you checked yes to is still compliant.
So back to, have you had incidents? If the answer is no, it's okay. But have you had incidents with MSPs like, hey, Mr. Insurance Company, third party IR guy, look, I had antivirus, I had EDR, I had backup, I had cyber. And by the way, I can show you with this platform that it was on and running.
So what's interesting is the insurance, they somewhat care, they don't care about like the Cork platform. It's really interesting. The insurers, like the big, the Tokyo Marines, the big time. It just makes their forensics a lot easier. And in full transparency, we're actually talking to some of the largest insurance companies out there to try to help them with automating what they're doing pretty archaically, right? Because even from them, their average forensics is $40,000 just to basically go and run to check all this stuff is on. Where I'm going to all the insurers and saying, hey, I can speed that process up for you. Just start leveraging the Cork information that we have. So it's really weird. We're trying to move in that direction. I kind of make fun of the insurance industry where they're like herding dinosaurs, right? They're really slow to move. They even say to me like, "Hey, we're usually 6 to 10 years behind everybody else." Um,
So I was just, you said 40,000. I'm like, 40,000 in labor costs. I was like, I wonder are those. So I put in my little calculator. I was like, it's 160 hours at $250 per hour. It's basically like 4 weeks.
so yeah, right. And that's what we usually tell partners is like, "Hey, when you do a claim, how long does that usually take to actually get through everything?" It's usually 4 to 8 weeks, right? And so, does your customer have enough liquid cash to support the business through that time? Because everything's going to be a reimbursement, right? And so that's where, again, like this isn't a knock on insurance because everyone needs it. It's more of how do we supplement that time that we're waiting so
Mhm.
that the customer is not paying out of pocket, or at least lessen that blow of out of pocket that we can. But you're absolutely right on the IR side. Typically, not every insurance not every insurer is the same, but most of them you have to be a designated IR vendor, right? The
Mm.
MSP can't just come themselves. It's usually the insurance insurer that's saying, "Hey, not you, Mr. or Mrs. MSP. We're going to use someone that we recommend that we know." So yeah, it's a little bit of a different model how they go about it. Again, we're more on the MSP side and the community side as opposed to the insurance side. We
Hmm.
do want to get them the information so that the full circle of what we want to be able to do is let's just say that a customer only has 5 products from a security standpoint, but there's 10 fictitious security products that could lessen their risk. I want to be able to give that information to all the brokers.
Hmm.
All the brokers then come back with a policy based on those 5 products, but then
Hmm.
also give recommendations on the MSP's behalf to say if you were to buy these other 5 products, your premium will actually drop. So now I can get recommendations from a third party to the MSP, which will then lessen the risk profile of the customer, lessening the risk of the insurance paying them out, getting more MSP sales, right? The managed service sales, but also probably reducing the risk, the tickets that they're getting because more recommendations are coming in. It's just one big infinity wheel to
So
make this less risky.
back to my analogies. I'm an analogy guy. It's like when I go to the auto insurance company, I type in my VIN number, and it's like, all right, this is your car, right? Did you make any changes? No. Okay, so based on your VIN number, this is the features of your car, and then they give you like the toggler, right? It's like, well, if I want this much coverage, then my premium's this. Well, if I want to, narrow this down, then it goes up over here. It's just the same thing, but on the IT infrastructure side, right?
Exactly the same thing.
Like, hey, you have an alarm. Well, your premium goes down now. Hey, you have GPS tracking or OnStar. Up. Well, you're probably, like
You
it
have dual side airbags and right, like the whole
exactly.
exactly the whole thing.
I like that. I like that. So, is the vision for this company like you said you're talking to, the big insurance guys? Is the vision for this company to, go a little bit corporate and, while you're doing the MSP stuff because or like
No, we'll always be channel,
okay.
right? Because that's Austin's big thing is being partner obsessed. And so like with him starting the company 2.5 years ago, I don't foresee us ever going out. And honestly, like if that was the direction of the company, I probably wouldn't be here just because like I said, I'm a channel lifer. So yeah, we're gonna be the way we actually see this is we always see that the MSP will be the center vessel to connect MSP products to insurance.
Okay.
And because like the insurers, they don't really, yes, they sell to MSPs every once in a while, but their bread and butter is going to be the end user. So who's going to connect? Who's going
All right.
to,
So let me give you a hypothetical. Let me give you a hypothetical.
yeah.
In a alternate Marvel universe where an insurance company comes to you and says, "We like what you're doing. We want to license your platform so that we can, like scan the environment of our potential insurer, customer insurance, customer. And then, if we come up with these recommendations based on what your platform tells us, then we can send them somewhere. Would that mean a potential prospective lead for an MSP?
I think you just described UConn's business model.
Okay.
So they leverage our technology for that scan, just like you're talking about, and then they're the marketplace for the brokers to connect MSPs, right? Like so they're that whole piece of it, exactly what you're talking about. So
Okay.
yes,
Like I'm going to tell you right now, as an MSP, I mean, you've heard it a billion times. Let me give you a billion one. Sales and marketing and lead generation. They
they're
all
great at it. What are you talking about,
struggle.
George?
Oh, yeah. So like, we've heard all these concepts, right? And you came from, marketplace, right? We tried to define all this stuff. But the problem is leads and potential opportunities. If the average MSP is still growing through referrals and word of mouth, nothing wrong with that. It's just slow, right? It's slow.
Very.
But how many times does the insurance company know that somebody needs IT services past the incident response investigation? All the time. They're getting the
Always.
claim.
So yeah, that's why we wanted to create that easy bucket and that infinity wheel. Because again, like you hit it right on the head. MSPs aren't great at selling or marketing. So if I can take the sales out of their hand and have those recommendations coming with an impact to their customer's business,
Mhm.
right? Because like think about right now, if I'm an MSP and I give a recommendation, me as an end user, I take that as, hey, you're trying to jack up my end user cost, right? Like, great. But if you come to me and say, hey, if you add this new EDR from this EDR, but it lowers your insurance premium, now I have a causation of what happens. And it's not coming from you. That's where like for me I got really excited because I'm like now I can really help MSPs sell, but like in the reality of what they're really trying to do, right, is they're trying to minimize the risk of their clients too. Yes, it comes with a monetary thing because not everything in this life is free. So that's where I'm like, hey, how can I help the MSPs get those recommendations and lessen that risk profile? Let's get the insurance because like you said, they're always going to be connected. But what's interesting is like brokers don't want to be MSPs and MSPs don't want to be brokers. So
And
they're
and
always
and,
going to be
and I'll
separate.
be honest with you, the people who have built an incident response business unit are not that, or most of the time, primarily do not do ongoing IT services.
Correct.
Like they go in, they're Rambo, they do their thing, they provide their report, and out because it's lucrative for them, right? Like 40 grand a pop. Do I want to continue dealing with everybody after the month? No, I'll take the month and run, right?
Right.
So then the question is, where does, like, all right, hey, we've come in, we've determined what happened, we've given our final report, we've cleaned up what we need to clean up, we're out. But now you're back to, well, what do we do moving forward? How do we keep this going, right? And like, it's a ready-made client. And let me flip over back to what you just said. I have personally been in the conversation where you're in a decision maker's office or check signer's office or office manager's office, and you're trying to explain to them why it makes sense to spend more money to plug these things. And they're just like, well, but if I just have the insurance and pay the premium, I'm still less than what you're asking me to buy. But there's a caveat, right? And here's where like the whole conversation melts down and most people fail at this, right? It's like, have you actually been through a claim? Like, have you asked your insurance broker how long does it take to process this claim and to get back to okay? Because the loss of business is not covered by your cyber policy. It's a completely separate policy.
That's another typical loss of business. And so like I would say that's probably the scariest thing now that I've flipped into like working with insurance is when you look at the general coverage, end users usually mistake what their full coverage is for what it actually covers per endpoint. So, like
Mm-hmm.
their sublimits. So, for instance, you may have $1 million in coverage, but it only covers up to $1,500 per endpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Does that really even do anything? And so, like, those are those small little nuances that if you're not reading your 40, 50, 200 page policy, those are the gotchas, right? And like a lot of people don't really know. Because if you're not really like looking for it, or I'm the average consumer, I'd probably say the same thing. You have $1 million in coverage, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's probably the scariest part is really shining the light on like what the sublimits are. Because you're like, look, if something happens, are you okay with $1,000 in coverage on an endpoint? Or like another one we'll see a lot is like $1 million in coverage, but it'll be paid out over 3 years, 5 years. So it's like now, when you break this down, it's not really that. It's $300,000, right? And so there's these little things that are in there. But in all honesty, I would say the insurance industry is making strides in the right direction where they are doing things like, do you have BCDR and are you doing annual testing in your environment, right? Those types of things where they're being cautious. Where 3 years ago, it was just like, do you have a backup that plugs into your computer? Great. Like, do you have tape fire backup, stuff like that? And so they're progressively moving in the direction, just probably not as fast as we'd like them to, but
So, Sam Altman, if that name doesn't ring a bell, he was the original founder and CEO of OpenAI. He got the boot for, I don't know, it's like a Steve Jobs story for a minute, and then he came back. So he's, yes, still the CEO and founder of OpenAI. And I was just reading yesterday and then again this morning that he's like putting out the warning signals. He's like, we are not prepared for the amount of fraud that's literally already happening in even just financial services that is happening, right? Like the ability to clone somebody's voice, right? Like he's like he's like putting out a public service announcement to like the banking, insurance, like all that stuff. He's like, you need to change the way that you can validate and authenticate people.
yeah, have you seen that the new one, like how people used to submit or still submit like their car crashes or whatever, fender benders, and they do like just a picture of their camera. Now
Mm-hmm.
they're adding dense through AI and nothing's actually happening to their car and they're submitting those and getting claims put through.
I did not hear that one.
It's that one I've seen a lot recently, which is wild, right? Like they're just, oh, let me put a little dent in my fender and then get a claim for it, and right? It's pretty crazy how this is going.
Yeah, so they're telling the banking industry you need to change your security protocols that are not going to save you because they're just gonna fraud your way all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, like that's so traditionally, right? Because I cover those four products that we usually look at from a warranty, but then the reason we started moving into like security awareness training is that's another reason why insurance won't pay out, right? Is if you're actually not doing your annual security awareness training. And so like we were like, well, we need to warn people if they're actually not doing this, because then they're just paying for their premiums for nothing.
Hmm. Scary time, man.
It's I mean it's part of the digital age, right? It's like we need to be aware of what's going on because it's ever changing. And so like I get where the consumers come from, where they're like, hey, my cost is going up, but there's a reason behind it, right? And MSPs just have a poor time of explaining the impacts of what happens because they're technical people, right? And so they're usually the smartest person in the room. And like I always explain it like they're veterinarians. They start using these big words, and then me as the general average Joe, I'm like, these big words start to cost a lot of money. This is going to be expensive, right? Because that's what they usually lean on, and so that's where I think having this other unbiased third party, because again, the me as a consumer, if I'm buying those five fictitious products and I'm already going to get insurance, I'm already going to fork over the money for this, right? And so like if I can lessen my business costs and my MSP can articulate that in a really easy way, why wouldn't I do it? Right? As a business owner, I have to make those decisions from a P&L perspective. I actually lose more money if I don't go this direction than if I do. So,
You still, I mean, unfortunately, you still got to get through the decision maker's head. Hey, like,
well, that's the cool part is we're actually educating our partners to say like, we ask, do all of your customers have cyber insurance? The answers vary, but then we'll get a lot of partners that say, yeah, it's part of our MSA that you have to have cyber insurance. And then I'll follow up with the question like, well, do you know if they have it or not? No. But then I started to think about it. I was like, okay, well, if they don't have like a tool like Cork, and the customer does say, yeah, I do have a policy. Can you take a look at it? Tell me if it is adequate coverage or not. Then I put an MSP in a bad situation, right? Because now they have to go through and look at stuff, probably do this for free. So now they're losing hours. And so now I've enabled them to say confidently, like, yeah, bring your policy. I have a tool that can spit out a one pager for you that's really digestible. And then you bring it back to your broker and you guys figure out if this is coverage or not, right? Because then it's like I know some things that I can fill in, but like we're not brokers, so we want to take all the liability, keep that arm's length away, and so that's why we made it a thing that you can actually just hand to your customer.
yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of the people who do, these policies they're not technical people.
So
Like
here's a really
it's
alarming
like the
stat.
business insurance guy who's doing like your, you
Home and
know,
auto.
auto policy, your general liability, your workers' comp, your this, and it's like, oh yeah, I also need this. So like they have no idea.
Throw a rider on. So we see that a lot. But here's a crazy stat. So in North America, so US and Canada, there's 1 million brokers in the world or in North America. Of those 1 million brokers, less than 10,000 actually are experts in cyber. So the likelihood of your end user actually getting an adequate policy is slim to none. Right? And so that's where it's
Hmm.
probably better for you to bring that up as an MSP, like, hey, just you probably want to just make sure you have it and make sure you're not just looking at what your coverage is, but like what your sublimits are. Because again, that like for me, the most important factor would be the gotchas, right? Like what if something happens, what am I not going to be covered on? Because that's what I would rather have that expectation as opposed to like, I thought I had this covered. Because then that's when you're left in a really bad business situation.
Yeah. Huh. So love the Aflac model. A lot of use cases there. Sounds like at least it sounds like the idea on the other side is you could just do this platform, right? SaaS, with the 90 plus integrations and not do, and like if you want to add it but you could run it standalone, it sounds like.
Correct. So yeah, that's exactly because what we ended up finding is a lot of our partners, you as an MSP can get an internal warranty and protect your own company.
Hmm.
What ends up happening is you have to DocuSign, like an electronic DocuSign, to execute the warranty and make it valid.
Hmm.
What we were finding is a lot of our partners were purchasing the internal warranty, but then actually never executing the warranty.
Hmm.
So literally, I was just going back and asking them, like, "Hey, George, why did you buy this?" And they're like, "Because we wanted to leverage the platform."
Huh.
And so, all
Okay.
right, cool. Like, let's just have it as a standalone, and then if you want to utilize it from that perspective, you can. Because what's really interesting, especially coming from the backup space, is backup's very black and white, right? Like this is how it works. There's small variants that actually change the product. With Cork, it kind of you can use it however you want, right? There
Hmm.
isn't like a set way for each partner to actually use it. So some may leverage it from a sales perspective in QBR, some may leverage it from an insurance perspective, some may leverage it from we see a lot of partners that'll use it from an endpoint reconciliation. So they're migrating from one tool to another, and then they want to make sure, like we have a partner right now that's moving from one RMM to another, and then
Hmm.
they're moving from one backup to another. How do we know that all the agents are moved off of, they have 6,000 endpoints. How do we know that they moved off of all 6,000 from this product over to this product? We're
Hmm.
essentially that safety net on the back end.
So sounds like it's almost like a hybrid monitoring. There's like some RMM style functionality in there. Like there's some SaaS monitoring in there. Like you kind of took like the visibility layer from all of these was supposed to be single pane of glass tools that never work. And you put them into a new platform, right? So that they could actually see this without having to have coding capability.
Exactly. So like I basically say now I've consolidated all your products, right? In the perspective of like from a validation standpoint, right? So like all these customers should have EDR, MFA, like through the gauntlet, right? The average MSP carries 18 managed service products. I can see
Oh,
nine,
okay.
right? So if I can see nine, I take away now from your technicians having to log into at least nine products. And I say at least because if you think about the average MSP, most carry like two different backups, for instance. So now instead of logging into backup one or backup two, I can log into Cork and see backup one and backup two, and which
Okay.
customers have either or.
So it's like a monitoring dashboard, right?
Exactly.
Is that the right definition? Like,
Monitoring and validation.
okay, high level, right?
High
What's out
level.
there? Is it on? Is it
Is
working?
it off? Exactly. Literally, that's the perfect way to explain it. Do I have it deployed and is it on or off?
And there's 90 plus products into this.
93. Yeah.
93. Wow, it's a lot. So like, can you give me, so you said there was the four main categories, right? Which was what? RMM,
EDR, MFA, and BCDR.
that's got it. I mean, what there's other categories now, right? So what's
Yeah.
past
So then we
those?
do email. We do email security.
Okay.
We do security awareness training,
Okay.
and then we do SaaS backup.
Okay. So like this many categories.
There should be nine. Hold on. Let me tell you what the other ones are.
Oh, I'm missing one. I'm missing a category.
Let me tell you. Hold on. It is. Oh, we also integrate with your PSA, so we can see if the PSA agents played as well. So that's the other
Okay.
one.
All right. So there's 93 products across the nine categories. It's like
Correct.
10-ish per category.
So like MFA only has a couple. They probably have like four, but then like in EDR there's a ton, in backup there's a ton. In PSA there's like the full, the handful, the mains like the ConnectWise Autotask, Halos, Super right, like the main ones.
Hmm.
So yeah, just it varies, but like literally what I tell partners is like come and challenge the engineering team, and if you have something that we don't actually observe today and they do have an open API, we'll crank it out faster than what your expectations were for sure.
how many developers are back there putting this together, man?
I think we have like 7 or 8, but like they're so his name's Marcus Reck, but he has a team of just monsters, and it's really cool to watch. And I would say this is probably one of the funnest things of not coming, coming from a PAX 8 with 1,700 people where it moves real slow to get things done. We're here, I was on a call with one of our engineers, and they were asking for specific filtering. That was at the beginning of the call. By the time the call was ended, the engineer came on and said, "Hey, I was able to put that feature in for you," which is really, really cool for partners because they're not used to that. And I'm not used to that. In the 12 years I've ever been a part of a company, never seen anything like it. Because so we started working with Roost and we had 75 integrations, and that was in April. And we've already jumped up to 93. Uh, Coming up to the end of July. So we're cranking these out left and right.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
it's cool.
so you're using some of their tech to speed that up?
So the cool thing with us is we're agentless. So everything's API based. So that's why setup integrations all are really, really fast.
That's awesome. All right. Well, good job over there, Marcus. Where are we going to see Cork out on the road? I know you guys are bouncing around now, so I know we
Yeah,
still
so
got half the year left.
next show we'll be at ChannelCon. We have that slated, and then I think we're attending two of the smaller events, but then I think we're going to close it out with IT Nation.
Mhm.
Um, we haven't solidified all that yet, but for sure the next one will be in at ChannelCon next week.
Awesome. Well, as we see people down in Nashville, enjoy it. Hopefully the weather's good. Hopefully it's not rainy because it sounds like you get a bunch of that. Definitely curious to see where this goes, but it sounds like this is a cool concept. And if nothing other than, I would almost look at the SaaS first and then think about the warranty second, but it all depends on the use case, right? But
But that's typically what ends up happening because most MSPs, what we actually were saying for a long time is we'll guarantee that we're going to find some issues within your environment, no matter how good you are, right?
Mhm.
And so most MSPs, when they come in, they're like, "Oh shoot, I have a lot of things that I have to fix."
Mhm.
And so that's just where it's more about like bringing that on because again, to have eligibility for warranty, you have to have those 4 products. And so if you don't, essentially the warranty is obsolete anyway. So like we have to go in and make sure everything's clean. And then even in our platform, we have a tab where it says eligible warranty clients. So we just lay them out for you like, hey, here's all the people that fit the model, and then anybody outside of that we can go and clean up. But yeah, definitely start off with the SaaS, take out your environment, make sure you are where you want to be. And then if you want to make some upsell opportunity, we have the availability to cover your customers financially.
I like it. I like it a lot. Where do people find more information?
Corkinc.com. I can send out the link in here as well, but it's
Sure.
pretty straightforward. All our stuff's on there, real easy to book a demo. Um, yeah, or you can hit me up online. We're always available. We're always at shows and pretty easy to find and know a bunch of people like George. So yeah.
All right. So if you're listening to the audio version of this, Cork is spelled Cork. If you didn't pick that up, that's what it is. So corkinc.com, corkinc.com. And Andrew, if you want to follow him online, his last name's Mora, Mora. So hit him up on LinkedIn if you want to, chat. I'm sure, he's got it on his phone like everybody else, right? I'm always getting messages. Uh, this was cool, man. I really,
Totally fine.
little bit of high level here, but makes perfect sense to me. Makes perfect sense. Did I read somewhere that you guys like doubled your partner base in like the last 6 months?
We did. So I forget what the exact number was, but we're at 262. That was last month partners. Um, so we're doubling. We're going fast. We're adding more and more partners. I think it's just, in all honesty, I think we had a different go to market before in 2024, right? It was more of the warranty play.
Hmm.
And then we started leveraging more and more from the partners' requests, the platform. And so the warranty is more of a secondary option, like you said, right? And we're kind of just going with instead of forcing our will and our mode on the partners, we're kind of taking the feedback and our partner success manager, she always says like our platform is actually built on partner feedback. And so that's where all this is coming from.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited, man. Sounds like, you like in startup mode. I think it's fun. Although I'm bald and I ripped all my hair out, but don't take that as the example for everybody else.
No, I dig it, man. We're having a good time over here.
That's awesome. Guys, this session was absolutely 100% recorded. Go back, rewind, um, check out corkinc.com. If anything, is it, can they trial it? Is
Yeah,
there,
we have we have a no, well, I'm gonna charge you right off the bat. You just have to trust me. No, so take my word for it, right? I've been in the game for a long time. No, so we do a 14-day proof of concept. We hook up all your tools. They actually get you onboarded. It takes less than an hour to get all of your tools hooked up because it's an API login, pretty straightforward. But then we try to earn your business, and if you don't like it, you can walk away, no harm, no foul. There is no charge to try it. Um, yeah, and then it's just dependent on what you actually want to do. And then you can buy, we're on a consumption basis, right? So it's you don't have to do everything. It's pay for what you use.
okay. Check it out, guys. I like it a lot. Andrew, I'll see you on the road soon. Yeah, I probably owe you a drink or two. And now that you're teamless, maybe we'll give you a game to go to. What do you think?
I'm thinking about it. I've been talking to your team about doing some parking lot sodas and hanging out with you on the road. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Well, looking forward to that, guys. Catch you on the next one. Have a good one, Mora. Catch you on the road soon, buddy.
Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
See ya.